Sometimes the church, the temple had to be torn down. And sometimes the church has to be torn down in order for it to be rebuilt in a stronger way. Sometimes it decays and breaks a little at a time until pretty soon the entire structure of it is shaky and has to be rebuilt. St. Augustine came up with the idea in about the 4th century, and it's called the just war theory. The just war theory. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that this morning because for all of these veterans here today and all the veterans that served and all the veterans that crawled in the mud and all the veterans that didn't make it, there is no such thing as just war. When you ask any of them why they fight, they don't fight for a cause, they don't fight for a country, they fight for each other. They fight for each other. The brother that's next to me in the hole, we're trying to get him home and he's trying to get me home. That's all that matters. There is no just war in the hole. There is no just war in the mud. There's just war. There's just war. And for those of you that never experienced it, you don't want to experience it. It's not a video game. It's not pretend. It's bloody, brutal, and ugly. And when we hear Jesus say, "Blessed are the peacemakers," it's hard for me to justify that statement and all of the statements that I hear from Jesus in the Jesus way and a just war theory. How did Augustine come up with this idea of just war theory? Well, I think what happened is that the kings of that time were waging war on one another, and they didn't really necessarily want to be held accountable for it. And so in just war theory, that any warfare or conflict that's justified by a legal authority, in that case it was the kings. I think war was justified by a legal authority was considered moral. So it's interesting because in that time, kings and queens were seen to have their authority and their power from God. God deigned the kings and queens to be an authority, and thereby, by definition, when the king or queen said a war was about to occur, it was like God said a war was about to occur. So one of my good friends in the Society of Friends, in the Quaker community, when asked to define war, he called it state-sanctioned murder. State-sanctioned murder. That's a hard one. I know, vets, it's hard, right? It's hard. It's hard to understand, why we did what we did. It's hard to understand for me that in 1968 and 1969, so many of our friends stayed behind. So many of our friends didn't make it. And now we're taking escorted vacations to Vietnam and we're wearing shirts made in Vietnam. Why couldn't we have sorted this out 50 and 60 years ago? Why did 55,000 young men and women have to shed their blood on land that now we call friend? Just war. Not sure. So Veterans Day is an amazing day, and we at Legacy Salmon Creek we give certificates away to all the veterans who happen to be in the hospital on that day. And we went around this Friday and gave out 36 certificates to men and women of four different conflicts. And each certificate was met in its own way. Some with smiles and thanks in gratitude for the recognition of serving. But some were met with tears. Because once you face the warfare monster, you're never the same. You're never the same again. Once you face that state-sanctioned hate for your brother that's 40 feet away from you, and that can stop like that when those in authority say, okay, no more. Lay down your weapons. It was met with tears. And I'm sorry that if for some of you these are hard words. But I believe in the end that Jesus was and is the peacemaker. Jesus was and is the peacemaker. And when you hear stories and see pictures of us here praying for victory, and during World War II, the Germans praying for victory, the Italians praying for victory, and the Japanese praying for victory, the North Vietnamese praying for victory, and the South Vietnamese praying for victory. What does Jesus do with these prayers? What does Jesus do with these prayers? What does God do with these prayers? I think God just shakes his head. Say, people, what are you doing? I sent my son to be a man of peace. I sent my son to show you how to walk the Jesus way, to love one another. But yet you beat each other to death on the battlefield with a rifle butt. In my name? In my name? I think God says, how dare you? How dare you? But here we are. Just warfare. State-sanctioned murder? Maybe. But for me, I believe that we are all relatives. We are all relatives. And yes, I served. I was an 18-year-old boy when I entered the military. I came out a 24-year-old man. Changed forever. And I know all the vets here, it was exactly the same. We recruit our young people to do our dirty work for us. 18, 19, 20-year-olds who've never had a chance to live. And now they're turned into something they never, ever imagined. For God, for country, maybe. Not anymore. We fight for ourselves. We fight for the brother next to us in the hole. Just warfare? Not sure.